No problem. Yesterday I was asked to prepare budget cuts or savings that are possible within the IT area. If you turn to the first page, I thought it would be helpful to just do a quick recap of the current configuration. Jamie and Barbara are district employees. Jamie's main focus is ticket management, interfacing with the teachers, the video project up at TMS, and he is the primary hardware support staff member. Barbara's main responsibility is Power School, Destiny, smartboard installations, and training. All configurations when it comes to switches, Active Directory, all the internals are done by the remote staff, as well as automated tasks that need to be done, as well as any rollouts that are urgent. So for example, when we had an SBAC problem, we both had on-site and remote staff, and at times there were 19 remote staff that were working on the systems. All of the systems within TPS are accessible through the remote tool that is physically housed in this building. Our staff is Elliot and Dylan are the primary techs. They're here. They're augmented by John, Thomas, Ryan, as well as others. They are the ones who are physically responding to any on-site issues. When a request comes in, it is first processed and attempted to be resolved by the remote staff. Based on the nature of the problem, it is then issued to an on-site if they are not able to resolve the problem. This configuration has worked out very well and has resulted in ticket volumes being the lowest since we've been here. When we got here, there were tickets, and we measure issues in a ticket. If there is a problem, a ticket gets put in. When we arrived here, there were tickets that were over 2.5 years old that were still open. There are no tickets that involve support or problems that are older than 2 weeks. That said, the directive was how can we save money and offer a solution? So I did an analysis of taking the 2 TPS employees and outsourcing them. The base salary, I've attended enough of these meetings. As a business owner, I look at the total cost, not just the actual salary. So I'm comparing apples to apples. I've noticed that when you do the budgetary documents, you're only looking at the base salary and are discounting retirement, insurance, etc. So I took a base salary of $55. Health insurance contribution is $25 per employee minus 17% contribution. Retirement and additional stipends. The total is $180K that TPS spends. 2 options is to provide Power School support externally and provide an additional tech. That translates into $99,000. That's basically a one-to-one relationship. On the next page, with the savings, and still including some savings, I looked at bringing 2 additional techs on site. That translates into $138K. Our cost for techs is $39K. Power School can be done, all of the Power School Destiny work can be done remotely at a flat $60K. Plus we're talking about for Power School, we're talking about 12 hours of support a day. Comparing option 1 on the next page, page 6, comparing option 1 over the next 5 years to assuming 2 employees, assuming a 3.5% increase yearly, is $505,000 in savings. On page 7.
Oh, sorry. You're fixing your cost for 5
Yes.
years?
Yes. Our costs are fixed under this plan. Our additional tax costs are fixed under this plan. This will not increase. The intent was to deliver the most value at the lowest cost possible. Option 2, the savings are not quite as great, but there's one additional tech. And that's not a bad plan, especially considering the greatly expanded technology footprint. We've added 13 carts at TMS. Depending on how the budget goes, the intention is to add additional hardware at THS. This would be a reasonable approach. Next page, the requirements that we would have to hold the flat rate. We would ask for the existing RFP to be extended for 3 additional years. In return, we would give our rate would be completely flat. There is a percentage increase in the RFP. We would forego that. And Power School work can be done remotely. This is fixed rate, not to increase. Potential for an additional technician. Improved service for Power School to 12 hours a day. Easier employee transition procedure, and 1 point of service for all technology issues. I was asked to present this. I'm not dissatisfied with either Barbara or Jamie's productivity. I think as a group, we work well together. But I understand the fiscal realities, and this is a model that will continue to be able to deliver the services as contracted.
Who were you asked to provide this presentation by?
Michael sent me an email at 1:15 yesterday. It had Dan, Jim, and Ken as the requested board members.
Can you explain to me what Power School is?
Power School is the main piece of software. It is a state requirement under Connecticut. It is a piece of software and a database that stores all of the student grades. It is also the main mechanism for announcements, so that when a snow release, when school's going to be closed for snow, there's an add-in. It is Power School that maintains the parents' phone numbers, email addresses, and it is Power School that connects to larger databases to do the voice transmit and the email transmit.
So it's a software program, then?
It is a software program loaded on a server here, physically in this building, with a copy up at TMS as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Holds, I'd like to add, it holds all information that we have, general demographic information, grades, everything about a student in public schools, discipline record, everything that we need to know. And it's also open to parents so that they can check their students' grades, assignments, progress.
The superintendent is correct. What it is missing is IEPs. It is not holding any SPED specific data. It is also not holding any lunch or library data, although there are districts that we do manage that have that data incorporated.
And it's also the system that the state of Connecticut recommended that all schools use.
It's mandatory.
For them to upload information. We put information in, we generate information to make it accessible to families, students, but the biggest person who uses it is the state. If they decide to do some research on a specific topic in every school system, they just reach in and take it.
How many hours are being proposed? Right now, we have that 200-hour.
200 additional hour, you're talking about the 200 additional hours?
For that? Right. How many would be in this proposal?
Same as the existing techs that are here now, which is day coverage from, in the summer, 7 to 3.
So how much have we paid this year for this service?
For which service?
How much have we paid Protected Harbor this year for the service?
For our base service or for?
In total.
Or for installing smart boards and whiteboards? What?
In total.
I don't have the number with me in total. Okay.
Here's my concern, and here's why I so strongly believe that the way this was shoved in here is inappropriate. It wasn't done by a 2/3 vote of the board. This isn't your issue. You're a businessman. Absolutely, you're gonna bill when you can bill.
No.
Our
No.
issue is, by contract, you can do what you're doing. The
Yeah.
issue that we have here is that the board thinks we're paying $460,000 for this. We're not. The board may be okay that we're buying all this equipment, we have to pay to install it. The board may say, okay, we know this is gonna cost us $583,000 and we're okay with that. The problem is, right now, I don't believe there's anyone in this room that has any idea how much this is really costing us at this point. And it may be that even though it's costing more, you guys all may decide that the service is worth the cost. The issue is, we don't know what we're actually paying, and we're gonna throw out everything we have without doing a full evaluation of what we have, what it's costing, what we're getting. I think it's short-sighted, and I think it's not the right way to go about it.
May I respond?
We spend multiple times, when we looked at outsourcing the other items, we talked about it for 2 years before we did anything. This, we're jamming it in right before. I will not even consider this until budget's looked at it, personnel, policy, how we deal with outside vendors, and what the
There's
district
no
looks
action
at.
on this. This is a presentation just like every presentation above it was.
Well, it's
And-
not really, Ken, because this
and
is a presentation that was put on
It was put on
26
because I
hours
set
ago.
the agenda. I'm allowed to make changes up to 24 hours in advance. I was asked by board members to add it. I reached out to Michael to see if the presentation could be put together, and it went on. It's no different than we thought about, geez, with the budget crunch we have coming, we should look at voluntary early retirement incentive. We tried to squeeze something together for that based on last night's meeting and Monday night's meeting. So it's unfair to be mad at anyone other than me. I added it to the agenda because I was asked to. I asked all of my subcommittee chairs to put forward ideas for the agenda. It did come in at the last minute because it was discussed on Monday. So that there could be a potential savings. And it's just looking at a budget crunch, get an idea of what we have. There's no action being taken on this. This is gonna get pushed to whatever subcommittee it has to go to, be it budget, be it personnel, be it whatever, but we have to start somewhere. And this is simply an informational piece to start looking at. That's all it is.
I'm not.
There's no action on it, so.
I'm not gonna say anything else, I'm not agreeing with
I'm sorry, that was.
May I respond to your comment?
that. It's not, in my mind, it's not actually relevant, because I don't think we should even be discussing this today.
But you left an impression that we're billing not arbitrarily, but freely. And I need to, just so you understand, that all maintenance work, 7/24, is included. The only items that we have invoiced for above and beyond, each and every single item has been approved by either the assistant superintendent or the superintendent. Plus, there are times that TPS cannot acquire equipment rapidly enough. For example, the mice that were just used during SBAC testing, we purchased at $0. So when you're looking at invoices, you have to be very careful. Are we trying to help the district, or is that truly under the contract? You will not find a single invoice, and the business administrator has gone through all of the invoices and has come back and said there was nothing. Everything is very clear.
That's
Okay.
your perspective. My perspective is the budget has been frozen since January, but we are continuing to spend. That's not a you issue.
I got
That's
it.
an us issue.
I understand, yeah, I understand.
So,
It was
to be
just a
looked into.
perspective, that's the only thing I was responding to.
We have any other quick comments? We only have about 5 minutes. Go ahead.
As far as this service that you're going to provide, does this have to go out to bid? It's a new service that wasn't contracted before. It's obviously in excess of $3,000. Matter of fact, it's in excess of $100,000. Would we have to go out to bid and see who else would provide these same services?
I believe the suggestion that we had was to make it as part of the original RFP, because we're not
But
changing.
it wasn't part of the
No,
original.
it's a change order to an existing contract. You can expand the services by someone, much like if they had catch basins to a road job. They don't put each catch basin up to bid. You're allowed to expand the contract.
Dollar-wise.
Yes, we did it with the buses. We do it with Kelly Services. When the buses went to propane, we extended the contract. And you're allowed to do that once someone's under contract.
Do we have a signed contract?
Cheryl says yes.
Can the board get a copy?
But
of
the
signed
board
contract?
approved X amount of money for this contract.
And the board would have to approve a change order to the contract.
And last year, Fiona said that we budgeted, what did you say, 410,000? 460, and how much did we spend?
500 and change.
Was it is it $100,000 or more?
Probably. I think it's over.
It's over.
Yeah.
Over 100,000.
And the same issue.
And the city charter requires that money that's not budgeted of $100,000 or more needs to go to referendum.
It was not spent.
What was not spent?
It was not spent, like, here's $100,000 bill. What happened is, in one of our special ed grants, there was money for extra technology to be purchased. Our special ed director retired in December, gone, okay, so we're all picking up the pieces to manage special education. It came to our attention that we had money to spend. We purchased smart boards, because it was for technology, and we purchased computers. The computers that came in needed to be loaded with all the materials that...
But it wasn't budgeted. You got additional money in the course of the year, but the original budget for this line item was
Actually, for 13-14, it was budgeted at $315,720. We actually paid out $425,732. For 2014-15, budgeted $414,825. We paid out $563,710. So what I want budget to look at is, are there grant offsets that should be being done to this budget? I don't really know what it is, but. we
But
need to
I
look
think you
into
have
it.
a charter consideration as well.
But there may be grant money that hasn't been
Well,
applied. That's why I feel it needs to be looked at subcommittee.
Yes.
My question was just, right now we have somebody who is doing Power School, and in here it said Power School work can be performed remotely, on-site is not required.
Correct.
How would that change affect what happens in the buildings? Like, I don't know how that works. If a teacher has problems with their Power School,
Well,
like.
in all fairness, the superintendent cut that position in her proposed budget, so that position will not be in district next year.
Okay, so that was gonna be.
That's already gone.
that was gonna be outsourced to a remote person?
No.
Right, I'm asking about what it means to do it remotely.
Well, yeah, right now for next year, we don't have anybody to do that.
So what we could, there are also secretaries who are using it, because given the scope and the magnitude of Power School, we do have those secretaries doing Power School, using Power School at the
Using
schools.
it, yeah.
And
They're
then
not
we
programming.
also have a secretary at Midgeon who does the data mining, the management for reports and things like that, so we supply those to the state. It's very difficult to do something remotely and get an answer, because no offense against Richard and his proposal, he's done a great job with the wiring and everything, but we've had some difficulty with the remote response, simply because if we're in an emergency with a report card or we need an answer right away, it's difficult to get those questions answered by somebody who's not using the system all the time. So at some point, just so the board has the information, we need some support there. Yeah, however we decide, however you decide to have that be done, that support, we need that hands-on, because I know that even when we've done some remote support, I know that folks have had to step in.
To answer your question, this would be a dedicated person, and all systems are accessible remotely, so they would say they either send an email or call a dedicated number and say, we've got a Power School problem. For example, the grades aren't adding up for student ABC. Then the remote person would look at the screen and they would do a conference call and say, show me what you're talking about. Okay, I'll get back to you in a fixed period of time. That may be a call to Pearson, where we need to get Pearson involved and see why in that one case we may have to do some research and see, is the problem bigger than that one teacher? Maybe the class has been misclassified, so it's throwing the whole math off. Maybe there's nothing wrong with the algorithm, but the way that class has been classified is incorrect. There's a whole series of processing that goes on. The physical interaction can be done remotely. Then there's a go away and see if you can fix, and then fix it and come back and then say, okay, it's done.
So who is the person that gets on the phone with that remote person?
We have people internally that are trained in Power School. We would assign one person as a dedicated TPS person. Because Power School is a toolkit. It's not like a hammer, it's a series of tools that are adjusted and tweaked for each school district. So right now we're responsible for making sure that the Power School servers are up, functioning, that we do updates. What we don't get involved in is the algorithm or math for TMS and how they do their grade calculations. We have gotten involved when there's been problems and, hey, does a programmer need to help, or is this a Pearson issue that needs to get resolved? But if we were to take on additional responsibilities in that area, we would have to dedicate somebody to really get into the specifics of TPS so that when a question comes in, we're knowledgeable and can respond quickly.
And Bobby's added, would that be an added hourly rate?
No, I gave you the fixed rate,
That would be included in the fixed rate,
All of that's included in the fixed rate that I just handed you.
no matter if it takes one or two texts or whatever to solve.
There are times that we've had problems that there have literally been everybody in the company working on TPS issues. That's 19 people overseas. And there's you don't have any hiccups. Now, I will tell you, for example, we're coming up to Memorial Day. All of the core servers are going to get updated that weekend. That's not something that you could do internally, but we can do it. There's not going to be anybody in the high school logging in. The only servers we're not going to touch over Memorial Day will be the email server and the primary authentication server at central office.
And that's all included in the base price.
All of that work is included in the base price, and everything involving Power School and customizations is included in what I gave you today.
So what's the extra cost? If we
The
purchase
extra
hardware
cost-
and you need to figure the hardware to,
The extra cost is what is in the original contract, which is TPS is responsible for the customizations for Power School and the support to secretaries and teachers when it comes to Power School-related tweaks and adjustments that are required by TPS. That would now be incorporated in. We would dedicate somebody for those issues and include it, whatever the issue is. If that's a 50-hour problem or if that's a 2-hour problem, it's all included and there's no additional cost.
Real quick, just from a math perspective, I'm looking at the proposal and it shows that each tech costs $39,000. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm looking at page 6. I see protected harbor supplies, 2 techs, and it says 99,000. 2 techs would be 78,000. So there's a $21,000 difference there. I'm curious what that would be. What
Page
the
6?
reason is
If
for
you
that.
go back to page 4 or 5,
Right.
one tech is at 60,000 to do the Power School.
Right.
The other tech is at 39,000.
We have different
On
tiers.
page 5,
Okay.
Yeah, on page 5, you see the 78 for 2 techs plus the 60 for the Power School. If you go to page 5.
We have different tiers of techs. The 39 would be on-site.
Okay. Nope, the math makes sense now. Okay.
And
So when I look at your numbers here tonight, what you've come to tell us tonight was you can get us 505,000, this would be page 6, you can get us $505,927,000 in savings, correct?
Correct.
Over 5 years.
Over 5 years.
And all it would cost us is to give you an additional $1 million in work. So you've come tonight to sell us over $1 million in your cost.
I'm not trying to sell you anything. I like the current configuration. It works.
Okay, I'm
And
just
it-
saying though, but to
it-
get that 5, we gotta give you over $1 million.
You've got to make a commitment to continue the flat rate model.
Was this all taken in consideration when the board, whoever is the people behind understanding this whole contract that we've had with you, that it was gonna potentially cost another $1 million over a 5-year period to get this thing actually working the way it's supposed to be working?
Well,
to get what thing, Andrew?
Well, I mean, these are things, what is this presentation here tonight?
This presentation is,
Tell us
the
what we.
superintendent has removed one of the IT techs.
Okay.
The presentation that is being given tonight is if we outsourced all of IT, what our savings would be, and the vendor is proposing a contract extension and a fixed rate for so many years to provide
So,
all IT.
one IT person for 5 years at 60,000 is approximately 300,000. And we're looking at his proposal of costing us over $1 million.
You're not getting just one tech for 5 years.
I
You're extending the
understand, but-
entire service, which you currently pay. for
And it's not
400,000
60.
or 60.
We'll debate what it actually costs the IT to do
Okay.
what we're doing in-house. But all of these models, be it page 6, page 7, I see that you're still looking to get an additional $1 million in contractual money from the district for a 5-year period.
I'm offering
Services that
To
you could sell us
flat
tonight
rate.
for $1 million plus.
to flat rate the yearly fee to maximize for an exchange for agreeing to no increase.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying, but it's just interesting that here, it's the way, I guess, government works. We're looking at potentially trying to figure out how to say that one IT, what it's costing to eliminate that one IT person or not eliminate it. And we're going from a 5-year period of that person costing us $300,000 to looking at providing more services at $1 million plus. I mean, I don't know how this all works. I'm just saying, looking at the numbers, how do we go from trying to save money to spending even more money? That's all I have to say.
Mine's not on that topic. Just for my reference, you said when you started, you had tickets that were 2 years old, and now you're down to 2 weeks old.
Right.
What's the actual response time that the teachers and then students are actually getting?
Depends on what the issue is, but generally, we're averaging 15 minutes.
Question about the outsourcing. If I understand it correctly, you said we have reduced the Power School tech, right? That person is
Yes.
eliminated.
Yes.
So what happens on July 1st? Does Power School go dark, or the first time there's a problem? What happens?
We have someone at the central office that will become their responsibility.
Okay,
Her
those are the people we
responsibility.
just heard use Power School, but don't
No,
necessarily administer
we
it.
have one person who has been to several over the past
Okay.
5 years, trainings. I mean, it's expensive, but we've sent 2 people over the past few years. Now we'll send one person to what they call Power U. And it takes, you can learn any component about the system that you want to be trained in.
And our technology manager, who does currently exist in the budget at this point, is going to further training on Power School as well.
So will we have to increase that secretary's salary or hours to cover this?
The biggest and most critical piece is the accuracy of our state reports.
So if we have already voted to basically eliminate one of these 2 texts that we have, then aren't all of these figures kind of moot? Because we've already reduced what we're paying. So then why would we take an option where we're now paying $60,000 to get back Power School tech who works remotely?
We eliminated one position, but we put the money in to add one technician through Protected Harbor in the budget already. That was a cut we've already done. This is taking the second person and adding a Power School component to it.
Okay, so we took out one salary for our employee, which was how
We've already
much?
done that, yes.
Yeah, no, I recall. And we voted to add back in something?
Yes, we didn't take the full reduction of that position. We only took the delta between what that person cost and what one of Protected Harbor's people would cost.
How much was that?
It's about 40,000 that we reduced it by.
Are you looking at this page?
I'm looking at page 2. So it doesn't really matter what I'm looking at. I'm just wondering, because I feel like this is operating on the premise that we still have these 2 people employed in our district, and I don't think we do. Am I correct?
What we do until
Until
June 30th.
June 30th.
Right, but
Do we have any direct questions for Mr. Luna?
Like Mr. Luna, I do have a question for the administration. Once you give the secretarial staff IT work, and the secretarial staff is part of 1579, wouldn't that automatically make 1579 able to claim the rest of the IT work?
No, because the person has been doing what you're calling IT work probably for the past 12 years.
They've been doing the programming for Power School.
Not the programming. Power School is programmed by Pearson. They have been doing all the work that goes into maintaining.
They've been doing the same work Barbara has.
No, no, yes and no. They know.
It's a yes or a no question.
Yes, she has been doing a lot of the same work Barbara has.
But again, there's been a component that IT's in. You're telling me that this person is gonna be able to do the same work, and once it goes to
No,
them,
we're having
it's.
them, we
It's
are
never
having,
going-
we are,
No, you,
We are having the other IT person still within the district trained on the component that the IT person that we are eliminating the learning. The other piece is a major component that the IT person that has been eliminated worked on was scheduling. We have now trained teachers and administration in-house to really take responsibility for scheduling at the secondary level. That's where it should lie, because they know the students, they know what they select, and they know how they should be placed. And Pearson offers the training.
Okay, so if we have already decided to cut one of our techs and outsource those tasks, does that change our contract with Protected Harbor at all? Because it sounds like in here, he's looking for extra time to the contract.
we budgeted the money to add a protected harbor person. We haven't added anything yet. We budgeted it when we were discussing it down at Midget Avenue, that we should leave the money in there in case you're going from a 4-person staff to a 3-person staff. How is that going to impact the response time and the effectiveness of the IT department? So when we were budgeting it, we left the money in there that if the response time became unsatisfactory, that we could add a tech through Protected Harbor's costs that are in his existing contract to cover that vacant position so that we could get the ticket response time back down.
It's not.
We haven't added anything yet.
Okay, but sounds like we intend to, or.
We budgeted for it, because
Right,
if you don't budget for it, you can't add it.
No, I understand, but it sounds here like the more we give to Protected Harbor, the longer a contract is expected of us. And I'm just wondering if the steps we have already discussed taking are going to affect our current contract. Is that like, are we now beholden to something that we're not aware of?
We haven't committed anything to Protected Harbors. All we did as a board is budget a figure on a piece of paper. We have not added anything to their contract. So we're not beholden to anything. Right now, we're going to start the year with a 3-person IT department, based on our current budget.
Right, with the
That's-
knowledge that if we needed to add something else, that we could.
We have, in his contract, there's an hourly rate to add additional tech. So if we get into a jam, we have a lump of money to add that additional tech. It's already built into the contract with no, I guess, expiration date extension.
Okay, I just want to make sure we don't make decisions that obligate us to something later that we're not planning on.
Contractually, we have 200 hours to
Right.
labor to help out for beginning of the school year during the summer.
Typically, when do we go through those hours?
Online testing, last year we used it to hang smart boards.
But typically, what month do we liquidate all of our hours?
July and August.
Right, for the start of our year.
Yeah.
So we're pretty much, when the kids come into school, we're already out of our hours. Right? Is that a fair statement?
Yes, because you're packaging your computers,
Right.
anything new.
Right.
If we have new equipment to disperse it.
Our busiest time of the year is July and August.
Right.
And
Makes
the
sense.
Christmas break.
And how many hours have you gone through after that busy period that has been billed after that period in excess of the 200 hours?
For onsite, I can only give you a guesstimate. I don't have a number off the top of my, I don't have a solid number, but I want to say 50, 60 hours.
At a rate of,
$75 an hour.
so that's what, $10,000?
That can't be, that's why I don't want to go into this.
Right.
Because I think we need to look at this in budget.
I mean,
We
she
need to look at-
threw out a huge number and discrepancy. Monday night you were there.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that you can say that would elaborate on that to make me feel a little bit better before I go home?
I could say something, because I'm in Newport, excuse me. new world right now. And some of them obviously are protected harbor invoices, some of them are Bell Electric, some of them are other things that are in that bucket.
But they
So
still
I'll
are-
give you a true accounting.
But they still are all relative to what the IT costs are.
Yes, but not, yeah. I would have to say, instead of gain in some cases, Bell was used, but those are communication costs for doing telecom work that was necessary. You know, some of which is still being submitted for consideration and not being done even at this late date with the budget frozen, like at Global Wetmore. They saw something come through, they want to put some phone work in, and we're not doing it this year, but I can give you a breakdown of everything in here.
Right, I
And
think it's
will.
important.
Sure.
But the big question is, why has the excess amount over the budgeted amount not been coming through budget as far as line item transfers from one account to fill those numbers?
Well, actually, that's what we're in the process of doing now, and that's a good question. I mean, some of the things that were done were required, unbudgeted.
Well, even if it's required, it still needs to go from one line item to another, and the only way the administration can do that is to get the board's approval to do it.
But
Yeah, I'm aware.
that's a management issue that has nothing to do with protected harbor's presentation.
Well, I mean, I was only asking.
Right, this is
No,
a
I
very
understand,
important
but-
issue, but it's not a him.
Right.
Okay, so it's not all his.
No, but I don't want it to, to be put into the newspaper that we're against
No.
the service that they provided. That's a management issue of why we haven't gotten budget transfers. That's something we have to take up as a board as a separate issue. Why we overspend an item on the list, those are discussions we have to have amongst ourselves. Thank you for your presentation, sir. All right, it is 8:58. I need a motion to extend for 45 minutes so we can finish this meeting. Have a second? Jim? In favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Burning the midnight oil again. Need a motion to go into executive session and invite the superintendent.
I'll move we go into executive session and invite the superintendent.
Thank you, Joe. Second by Dan. All those in favor? Opposed?